Are the New York Rangers a better team right here, right now, today than they were on opening night last season? We debate that and more on today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers.
You're Locked On the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 883. Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Birddogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL or enter promo code LockedOnNHL for a free white tech hat with any order. You won't want to take off your Birddogs. We promise you. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, as I just mentioned, going to spend today's episode with a fun debate here. We're going to compare and contrast last year's opening night roster with what we expect will be this year's opening night roster. Obviously, we don't know for sure the exact 20 players that are going to be out there on opening night, but I think we have a pretty good idea. And as a quick note, quick disclosure here, we're not going to be including any of the players that the Rangers acquired at some point during the regular season last year. So no Tarasenko, no Kane, no Tyler Mott, et cetera, et cetera. This is only players that were on the opening night roster last year, and we're comparing them once again to the players that we believe will be on the opening night roster for this year. So with all that said, I wanted to do a quick roll call of the players who were on the opening night roster last year that are not going to be back or seem pretty certain not to be back for this upcoming season. Some of them might still be free agents, but it certainly doesn't look like they're going to be coming back. The players that fit that description, guys that were in the opening night lineup last year, you've got Vitali Kravtsov, Ryan Carpenter, Ryan Reaves. I thought about including Zach Jones because I don't think that he's going to crack the opening night roster this year, but I'm not going to include him because he is still part of the Ranger organization. It's possible he's out there on opening night. If not, maybe he's a healthy scratch. Maybe he starts the season with Hartford. We shall see, but we're not going to include Zach Jones here because the book is still out on him, and I'm still keeping my fingers crossed that he can be a good player for the Rangers, at least like a solid third line or third pairing defenseman. So, again, as far as like bona fide departures, like they're gone or they're almost certain to be gone if and when they sign with another team. Again, you've got Kravtsov, Carpenter, and Reaves. Those are the three guys that were in the opening night roster last year. You've also got the backup goalie, Jaroslav Halak, and you have the three healthy scratches from last season on opening night. None of them are with the Rangers at this point either. Those three players are Libor Hajek, Dryden Hunt, Sammy Plays. So that is a total of 7 players from last season that are either guaranteed to not be back this upcoming season or are all but guaranteed not to be back this upcoming season. Like Libor Hajek, for example, hasn't signed with anybody, but God help us all if he's on the opening night roster again for this team this upcoming season. But again, 7 players are gone. No disrespect intended whatsoever. I don't know how much the Rangers are going to miss really any of these guys. Of course, some of them didn't even make it through this past season with the Rangers. You know, Carpenter was sent down. Hunt was placed on waivers and claimed. Ryan Reaves was traded, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, I mean, to go through all these players really quick individually, just to kind of get an idea. I mean, you guys have, a general idea, but to just kind of go through and kind of illustrate my point that I don't think the Rangers really lost anything from last year's opening night roster. You've got Kravtsov. Obviously, the Rangers gave him another shot last year. Didn't really work. I mean, I guess the one positive thing you can say about Kravtsov last year, he actually showed up and the effort seemed to be there, but he just wasn't really able to produce a whole lot despite playing with Panarin, traded to the Canucks. Did nothing there. Now back in the KHL on a 2-year deal. So I don't think the Rangers are going to miss Kravtsov too much. Obviously, they swung and missed with that draft pick. But as far as Kravtsov, the player, yeah, I can't see them missing him. You got Ryan Carpenter. Didn't really make much of an impact last year as the fourth line center for the New York Rangers. The Rangers waive him. He clears waivers, spends the rest of the season with the Hartford Wolfpack, never to really be heard from again as far as playing on the Rangers is concerned. And he's now with the Sharks. You got Ryan Reaves. I thought Reaves, kind of helped this team from a locker room standpoint and being a leader in his own very unique way. The first season that he was on the Rangers, obviously, he's the enforcer. He's got to watch everybody's backs out there. Also brought some swagger to the rink. Honestly, you could make the case of the 7 players here that maybe they miss him more than anybody else. But he very kind of gradually got squeezed out of the Ranger lineup was traded to the Minnesota Wild last year and now ends up signing with the Leafs on a 3-year deal. So Reaves is gone. Halak, he did fine as a backup. Going from him to Jonathan Quick, though, that doesn't feel like something that's really going to kill the Rangers. I think it'll be fine. Obviously, the Rangers are in a position right now where they have to go with inexpensive veterans as the backup goalie, and going from Halak to Quick this year. And then you've got Libor Hajek. It felt like he was here forever. Could never really nail down a spot in the Ranger lineup. They gave him some chances. He had a couple runs with the team, but could never really just take a stranglehold on one of those 6 defenseman spots. And he's still a free agent, so I guess never say never, but I would imagine he'll probably be with some other team next season. Dryden Hunt, hardworking player. I liked him while he was here. They even put him in the top 6 briefly with Panarin and Strome 2 years ago. They waived him. He got claimed, and he's gone. And again, just not a player that I think the Rangers are going to miss that much. I mean, could the Rangers get by with him as like their 4th line right winger? Probably. I mean, there's nothing like wrong with that. But again, this is not somebody that's going to kill the Rangers by not being here. And then Sammy Blais, I mean, look, it just didn't work out here with the New York Rangers. Obviously, the injury had a big part of that. His first season got cut short due to the injury. And then his second season, I think maybe still suffering some lingering effects from that injury. So I feel for Sammy Blais, got traded back to the Blues in the Tarasenko deal, and seemed to work out okay for him. He seems comfortable there, so good for him. But again, those 7 players I just mentioned, I mean, show me any one of them who, oh my God, we're missing this guy, like we're going to get killed. And again, no disrespect intended here. I'm just illustrating the point, and you guys can probably see where I'm going with this, the overall theme of this episode, that I do think this Ranger roster, opening night roster for this upcoming season, is quite a bit better than the one that we started with this past season. And we're going to continue to evaluate that in just a second. I want to go ahead and switch our attention to all of the incoming players for the New York Rangers. Blake Wheeler, Jonathan Quick, et cetera, et cetera. Take a look at them and kind of compare and contrast them in some cases to, more or less the player that it seems like they're replacing. Like with Jonathan Quick, obviously he's replacing Halak. I feel like, Nick Bonino, I think you could say that he's probably replacing Ryan Carpenter, 4th line center, et cetera, et cetera. You get the idea. We'll get to that in just a second. Have some fun with that. But first, gotta let everybody know, today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Birddogs. Birddogs make you look good. Birddogs stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. Birddog shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but they fit way better. They fit way better than regular shorts that are made of a stiff, restricting cotton. Birddogs fix this issue by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but stretches so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice any movement. Birddogs uses anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL or enter promo code LockedOnNHL for a free white tech hat with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL or promo code LockedOnNHL for a free white tech hat. You won't want to take off your Bird Dogs, we promise you. All right, we just want to go ahead. Thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. And for the everydayers, definitely stick around throughout the offseason. Things have slowed down a little bit, but we've always got some fun things to talk about here on Locked On Rangers. Going to be continuing our best and worst case scenario series where we take a look at every player that I project to be on the Rangers opening night roster, go through the best case scenario and worst case scenario for every single player. Also working on lining up a few guests. And we're going to have our Derek Stepan episode very soon as well, where you guys basically just send me stories. And if you haven't done that, go ahead and do it now. You send me stories, where you were, who you were with, how you reacted when Derek Stepan scored in Game 7 in overtime against the Capitals all the way back in 2015. But for right now, let's continue doing what we're doing here today. We're going to shift our attention from the players that departed or, 99% likely to depart and shift the attention to the guys that the Rangers have brought in via free agency this offseason. We got to start with Blake Wheeler. 37 years old or not, back 9 of his career or not, he's a better player than anybody I just mentioned as far as the departures are concerned, and I don't even really think it's close. He's head and shoulders above anybody that was on this opening night roster for the Rangers last season that is no longer here. By all accounts, it sounds like Wheeler's skating is not what it used to be, but as I've said all along, for a position where the Rangers are thin, that being right wing, and for a guy that's had the career that Blake Wheeler has, And for somebody that's going to be making just $25K over the minimum, I am very happy to take that chance for 1 year. It's definitely worth the risk as far as I'm concerned. This is somebody who, even last year, the Jets, and, we talked with Harrison in our crossover episode about this, a little bit of a tumultuous locker room, seems to be a divide between, the vets and some of the young guys. Even playing in that kind of an environment, 16 goals, 39 assists for 55 points in 72 games last season. Another 6 points in 5 playoff games against the eventual Cup champion Knights. So again, I'll take my chances with Blake Wheeler for this upcoming season over anybody that I mentioned as far as the group of players that departed this offseason. As far as how they use him, I mean, to me, you could go with him on the Panarin line because, you got so many options here. Part of me wants to see Lafreniere, Mika, Kakko on the top line, and that would seemingly open up the right wing spot in the second line for Blake Wheeler. You could also go Kreider, Mika, Kakko on the top line. You could put Lafreniere on the right wing on Panarin's line, and then Wheeler would be in the third line. But regardless, again, I think this is a really nice signing. The one thing with playing him with Panarin is it does feel like it's a little bit redundant because they are both facilitators. But we've seen a lot of less talented players than Blake Wheeler get the Panarin bump and see an uptick in his scoring. Again, if Blake Wheeler can put up, 55 points in 72 games last season on a team that was, just kind of middle of the road, barely squeaked into the playoffs and was kind of in turmoil, then yeah, I got to believe he can do more than that playing with Artemi Panarin. But we'll see how they look to line up. Regardless, again, I put Blake Wheeler head and shoulders above any of the players that I just mentioned as far as departures are concerned. Jonathan Quick, I would have to say, just based on their stats the past couple seasons, when you look at Quick and Halak, this is a little bit of a downgrade going from Halak to Jonathan Quick. It's close. The one thing that Quick obviously has in his favor is he's a winner, playoff experience, 3 Stanley Cup championships, 2 of which he was the most important player on his team. Obviously, the 2 that he won with the Kings was a little bit of a passenger this past year with the Knights, but who knows? Maybe he positively impacted Adin Hill before that playoff run that he had. But as I've said all along on this podcast, ever since we found out that the Rangers were talking to Quick and likely going to sign him, I'll take my chances with him in a playoff series. If anything happens to Igor, knock on wood, I'll take my chances with Quick, somebody that's been there and done all that over, just some random backup goalie that's just been kicking around the league the last 10 or 12 years or whatever it might be. I would go with Jonathan Quick in that kind of a situation. So I will say a slight downgrade going from Halak to Quick. Halak had far better numbers than Quick last year, and that's kind of been the case the last 3 or 4 years in general. But you look at Quick's resume, you're hopeful that, with less wear and tear and him being in a bona fide backup role, he could turn back the clock a little bit, be a solid backup. So I'll consider that one a slight downgrade going from Halak to Quick. Moving on to Nick Bonino. I would say he's most comparable. I mentioned it right before we took our break there, but I would say he's most comparable to Ryan Carpenter in that both players seem to be brought in on a 1-year deal, probably only going to be here for 1 year. We'll see. You never know. They could re-sign Bonino, but probably a 1-year stay. It was the same thing for Ryan Carpenter. Both of them brought in to basically anchor the fourth line, play good defensive hockey, play a gritty style, kill some penalties and whatnot. I just happen to think Nick Bonino is a lot better at all those things than Ryan Carpenter. It's nothing against Carpenter. I just didn't see anything from him last year that was overly impressive and made you want to see more of him. And apparently the Rangers thought the same thing because just 22 games for Carpenter, plays on waivers, sent to the Wolfpack, and again, never called back up by the Rangers, and he has since moved on. Bonino, you're getting somebody who I think can score a little bit more than Carpenter and just does all the things that I just mentioned a little bit better than Carpenter. And if you're big on having a couple of Stanley Cup champions in the room, Nick Bonino has won 2 Stanley Cups. So he's got that working for him as well. And to me, Bonino, a pretty clear upgrade on Ryan Carpenter. Tyler Pitlick. So he basically, from opening night last year to opening night this year, he basically replaces Ryan Reaves because they both played fourth line right wing. It's kind of an apples and oranges comparison here. It's hard to compare Tyler Pitlick to Ryan Reaves, 2 very different players, obviously. As far as which one you'd rather have, depends what you're looking for. If you want an enforcer and a guy who's going to go out there and just be a wrecking ball and lay people out, and a guy that brings a little bit of swagger to the table as well, I think Ryan Reaves is your guy. If you want somebody that brings a little bit of speed, brings some penalty killing, something of a pest out there, somebody that you trust in a situation where, say you're up by a goal late in the game, you're trying to hang on to that 1-goal lead, then I think Tyler Pitlick is your guy. But I think the Rangers prefer a Pitlick-esque player over a Ryan Reaves-esque player. And I know this because the Rangers, after scratching Reaves, 9 out of 10 games or whatever it was there, was getting pretty crazy. They traded him to Minnesota. And then a little bit later in the season, they reacquired Tyler Mott in a trade. So Mott and Pitlick are a little bit more of the same ilk than obviously Reaves is with either of those two players. And I think with Pitlick, they're going with essentially a less expensive version of Tyler Mott. I think he's here to kind of play the Tyler Mott role. So with all those things said, I got to say, I think that it's a tough comparison because they're very different players, but I do think Pitlick overall an upgrade on Ryan Reaves. You've also got Erik Gustafsson. He's essentially replacing Zach Jones if he beats him out for the sixth defenseman role. There's part of me that wants to call this like a push or a tie, but I do want to eventually come to a conclusion here and say it's either an upgrade or a downgrade. Somewhat similar players, offense first defensemen that can be defensive liabilities at times. Gustafsson's had kind of a really random career, very up and down, bouncing from team to team. Zach Jones has shown some flashes here and there, but he hasn't really been able to take the bull by the horns and stick in the Ranger lineup either. And really, whether Gustafsson is an upgrade or a downgrade, the two of them, Gustafsson and Jones, the two of them are basically going to settle it themselves throughout training camp, throughout the preseason. I got to believe that Gustafsson probably has the inside track to be out there on opening night, but I think Jones should be given, every right to compete. I don't see why not. So I will say, if they go from Jones to Gustafsson, I will consider a slight downgrade just because, from a Ranger team perspective, I think they'd like to have Zach Jones out there because he's their homegrown guy. They drafted him in the third round. You want to see what he can do, and you want to see him eventually become a productive member of this New York Ranger team. And now you're going to go to Gustafsson, who has bounced around the league. He's on like his fifth team in the last 6 years. It's something ridiculous like that. Or sixth team in the last 5 years, something in that ballpark. So to go with the veteran journeyman over your own homegrown guy, who you probably have high hopes for, given that he was a third round draft pick, that makes it just a slight downgrade for me, going from Jones to Gustafsson. But who knows? Maybe, the battle is on, and maybe Jones plays better than Gustafsson in the preseason, takes that sixth defenseman job right back. We'll see how everything shakes out there. But yeah, that's kind of where things are at as far as the additions to this team. There's a couple other guys that they brought in, but they're like on minor league contracts. Alex Belzile comes to mind, and a couple defensemen, Holloway, I believe is his name. So yeah, those guys weren't some consideration, I guess, but I think in most cases, you're going to be seeing them probably start the season in the AHL. Not every single one of the 11 or so free agents that the Rangers signed are going to be out there on opening night. That is for sure. So to kind of wrap up this section, as far as, healthy scratches are concerned, I think you're looking at maybe either Jones or Gustafsson being the healthy scratch, whichever one of them is not the sixth defenseman. Ben Harper could be a healthy scratch. Alex Belzile maybe could be the forward that's a healthy scratch. Maybe Johnny Brodzinski is in the mix as well. But, any of those defensemen I just made, I'll take them over Hayek. And whether it's Belzile or Brodzinski, probably take one of them over Blais as well. It just wasn't going to work out with Blais here with the Rangers. It certainly did not seem. But, yeah, that's kind of where things stand as far as, obviously the additions versus the departures. I feel like the players that the Rangers have added are overall, it's just a better group of players than the players that, were either traded by the Rangers last year, placed in waivers by the Rangers last year, or walked in free agency during this current offseason that we're going through right now. So that's where things stand. I did want to do one last thing here, though, where we take a look at some players that are on the Rangers. They were on the opening night roster last year, but these are guys that have a chance to either significantly rise or significantly fall, based on where they are in their career. Who could we expect more from this upcoming season? Who should we maybe expect less from? And we're going to do that in just a second. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here. Risers and fallers on the New York Rangers, guys that were on the opening night roster last year and who certainly seem likely to be on the opening night roster this year. And we'll actually start with players that are about the same, guys that kind of, they are what they are at this point, whether the expectations are high or medium or low, whatever it might be. These are guys that I'm not expecting significantly better or worse than last season. I think you can run through with Panarin, Mika, Kreider, Trocheck, Goodrow, VZ, Fox, Lindgren, Trouba, Igor. That's the list that I have here as far as guys that they're going to give you about what they always give you. I mean, obviously can fluctuate a little bit. Some of these guys might end up with a couple more points or a couple less points than they had last year. Maybe somebody is more or less involved in the penalty kill, whatever it might be. But for the most part, those guys are what they are. And I don't see any significant jumps or fall offs from any of those guys. As far as players from last year's opening night roster that I think might not give you as much or might give you significantly less this year than they did last year, there's nobody. So we can kind of just breeze through this section. I mean, honestly, look at a player on the Rangers opening night roster last year who is still here, who you're thinking is like, wow, this guy, his game is about to fall off a cliff. I just don't see it. I don't think that player exists. So that's obviously a good thing. There's nobody who, you're really worried about from last year that, he's just going to fall apart this year. I don't think that player exists, as I just said. As far as risers are concerned, now this is the fun part because there's quite a few here. I think there's quite a few players on this team that at least have it in them to be, fairly significantly better in this upcoming season than they were in the season that just continued. And I think you got to start with Kaapo Kakko. He just continues to improve little by little every season. We're looking for that significant jump. But last year, career high 18 goals, career high 22 assists, career high 40 points, career high plus minus. He was a plus 12. Good defensive metrics. More comfortable being a power forward. It would seem, early in his career, he was kind of hesitant to be that guy who maintained possession of the puck for a long time, but he's taking advantage of that a little bit more often. And, he seems to have chemistry with, I would say, two different groups of forwards. Obviously, the kid line, they can get hot every now and then. Lafreniere, Chytil, and Kakko, we know about that. But we also saw Kakko play with Mika and Kreider at times last season as well, and I thought he did a nice job there also. So Kakko, starting to figure it out, starting to build chemistry with a lot of different forwards on this Ranger team. I'm very bullish on Kaapo Kakko for this upcoming season. I think you've also got Alexis Lafreneire. This, of course, is assuming that he ever signs a new contract, and we'll keep our eye on that. And if and when it happens, we will talk about it. But I did see a stat about Lafreniere that encouraged me. Since 2020, apparently, he is third on the Rangers in even strength goals, which really surprised me. But then you think about it a little bit and you realize, he has okay goal totals, certainly for a 21-year-old. If you took away his draft status, you took away the fact that he went number one overall and you didn't know anything about him, only that he was a 21-year-old, I think you'd be pretty happy with what Alexis Lafreniere has been giving you the last 3 years. It's just that, he was the first overall pick. Everybody was hyping him up. All the scouts agreed this is the consensus. No doubt, slam dunk, number one pick of this year's draft. And yeah, it just hasn't quite materialized into what we all thought it would materialize into. But I still think he has it in him. My only concern with Lafreniere is the lack of, complete wow plays. It happens once in a while, but not as often as you would like. But you got to figure, Lafreniere gets a little more power play time. Gets to play maybe some top 6 minutes this year as well. I do think he'll have, pretty significant jump for this upcoming season. You've also got Filip Chytil. Now, Chytil basically just enjoyed his breakout season, the one that just concluded, but I think he's got that much more to give to him. For a while, he was really struggling as far as shot accuracy is concerned. I can't tell you how many times 2 years ago, and obviously before that, this guy would get the puck in, pretty prime real estate, and he's got a great shot, and he would just miss the net. He would shoot wide, no joke, by like 4 or 5 feet from like a pretty good spot on the ice. I don't know if he was trying to be too fine with it. He was kind of joking this past year that he's not really thinking about it anymore. He just basically shoots the puck. So maybe that's something that allowed him to kind of get it going this past season. But career high 22 goals, career high 23 assists. This is from your third line center. Obviously, if he gets a chance with Panarin next year as well, I think there's even more of a chance that he'll see a significant jump. So definitely looking forward to Filip Chytil, seeing what he can do for an encore after what was a pretty solid breakout. I don't think he's quite at the top of his abilities yet, but obviously, that was definitely a step in the right direction last year. He almost doubled his career high in points last season, 45 last year. And without looking at it, I'm almost positive his previous career high in points was 23. So he almost doubled it. And let's see what he can do for an encore. K'Andre Miller. Miller, to me, again, one of the more impressive success stories that the Rangers have had as far as the draft is concerned, taking him in the first round, and somebody that, there's been some hiccups here and there, and there have been some mistakes here and there, and there's always things you can critique. But for somebody that, I think he's still just 22 years old, 3 years into the league, I mean, he's become a really nice, rock-solid defenseman for this New York Ranger team. And, I've said I feel like this dude is knocking on the door of superstardom. He can get there. I think that There's also a chance we might see him with Adam Fox at some point this season. I'm still kind of resisting that a little bit. I like Lindgren and Fox, and I like Miller and Trouba, but I'm certainly open to the idea if the Rangers just want to have this crazy dynamic top pairing, Fox and Miller. I think Miller would start contributing more offensively almost immediately, and then you would have the old school second pairing with Lindgren and Trouba, the two physical guys who will just take your head off if they get the chance. So Keandre Miller, again, 23, not at all difficult to believe that his best hockey is yet in front of him. So I'm very encouraged from what we've seen from Miller, and I think he's somebody that could be another significant riser for the Rangers this upcoming season. And then finally, I'm going to say Braden Schneider. I mean, again, you can kind of, in some ways, copy and paste everything I said about Keandre Miller because they're both first-round draft picks. They're both, just getting started in the league. They're both very young, and they've both given you a lot. And, even if they kind of plateau, both of them, they're still really solid players right here and right now. Braden Schneider, I feel like at this point, he's ready to play, a top 4 role as far as defensemen are concerned on just about any team in this league. It's just unlikely he's going to do that with the Rangers, which is no fault of his own. They just got a lot of defensemen that they really like and guys that are ahead of him on the depth chart. But, I mean, what a luxury. Braden Schneider, we did our best case and worst case scenarios episode on the right defenseman not too long ago. And I said, it's possible by the end of this season, we could be talking about Braden Schneider as being the best, or at least one of the absolute best third pair defensemen in this league. I mean, there's been nothing that would suggest that this guy is not going to go on to have a really nice career, very physical player. Can chip in offensively every once in a while. We'll see if he ends up, playing a little bit more on the PK this upcoming season. But Braden Schneider, a very solid player already, and somebody that, again, just 21 years old, you figure he can get even better. So we'll see how that all shakes out. I'm also going to do an honorable mention here. I mentioned Vincent Trocheck in the section as far as players that, I don't expect a significant improvement or a significant regression in any kind of way. But I will say this about Trocheck. First of all, it's his second year with the Rangers, so there's that. You're obviously a little bit more comfortable. Your teammates a little bit better, all that good stuff. But Trocheck hit an ungodly amount of posts this past season. It was easily into the double digits. I lost track of it at some point. But with just a little bit more puck luck, I mean, last year, he scored 22 goals while hitting the post a double-digit amount of times. A little bit more puck luck, and we could be talking about Vincent Trocheck having a 30-goal season this upcoming season. So if luck is on his side, I think Trocheck could be a pretty significant rider too. A little bit of an honorable mention there at the very end. But yeah, in conclusion, I mean, look, I think this is a significantly better opening night roster for the Rangers, or what we think will be the opening night roster this year than what we had last year. I don't think the Rangers are really going to miss any of the 7 players from the opening night roster last year. Now, look, obviously, they'll miss Tarasenko. They'll miss Kane to an extent. They'll miss Mott, maybe even Mikkola a little bit. But those are all guys that were not on the opening night roster last year. I'm just talking opening night rosters specifically. I don't think the Rangers are going to miss anybody that was on the opening night roster last year and not on the opening night roster this year. So we got that. I think the free agents that they brought in to replace those players are just simply a little bit better. And of course, some of the Rangers own homegrown players. Those are guys that could take significant steps forward as well. So I'm, having done all this episode and put everything together, I didn't realize, I knew I wanted to do this episode, but I didn't realize how convinced I was going to be and how, pretty clear cut it was going to be to me that, yeah, this is a better team going into this year than it was going into last year. And going into last year, they were coming off of an appearance in the Eastern Conference Finals. So I think there's a lot of reasons to feel good about this team, to be excited about the upcoming season. I know people have kind of been down in the dumps ever since that disaster of a playoff series against the Devils. Everything basically that happened after Game 2 in that series. But people should still be excited. There's a very talented team. There's a good mix of young guys and vets. Everybody brings something to the table. I think it's a very well-constructed roster for this Ranger team. And I thought they did a nice job this offseason with their additions, especially when you consider their extremely limited cap space. I think they did a nice job. And you talk about all this, man, I'm just that much more looking forward to Ranger hockey. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are as well. To kind of wrap up today, also wanted to mention, we already talked about the Derek Stepan stories. Again, email them or DM them to me, who you were with, what you were doing, how you reacted when Stepan scored in 2015 against the Caps in Game 7 in overtime. And the other big thing, the Fantasy League, the deadline for players that played last year is Monday, August 21st. After that, we're going to open it up to some new players for this year and hopefully have a full 20 players this season and just have some fun playing some fantasy hockey. But That will do it for today, guys. Once again, if you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, it's @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I'll see you next time.